Y News with Angelo Castro III, William Theo, and Darlene Basingan.
Good evening. Former President Benigno Aquino III is now facing charges of graft and usurpation of official functions before the Sandigan Bayan. Here's why from Ray Pelayo.
The Office of the Ombudsman files charges for violating the RA 3019 or Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act and usurpation of official functions against former President Benigno Aquino III before the Sandigan Bayan. The charges stemmed from the botched operation of the Philippine National Police Special Action Force or PNP staff in Mamasapano in 2015 that left the 44 members of the elite police unit dead. Based on the case's information, the former president allowed then suspended PNP Chief Alan Purisima to influence his decision on the Oplan Exodus, which targeted terrorists Zulkifli Binhir alias Marwan and Basit Usman. The ombudsman alleges Aquino violated the PNP chain of command, the suspension order it imposed on Purisima as well as the order of then OIC PNP Chief Leonardo Espina to stop the suspended police official from performing his duties. The Office of the Ombudsman recommended a bail of 40,000 pesos for the two charges it filed against the former president. According to Senator Antonio Trillanes IV, the then director of the PNP Special Action Force or SAF, Getulio Napeñas, should be held liable and not Aquino.
So sa amin, yung commander, ikaw ang responsible. Kung pumalpak ka, salo mo yon. Hindi mo pwedeng ituro sa taas, sa presidente, yung kapalpakan mo.
Liberal Party Senator Bam Aquino, meanwhile, says the former president is ready to face his liabilities in the Mamasapano tragedy. The senator says this is why he is confident the former president will face the charges and that the truth will soon come out. On the other hand, the original complainant, the Volunteers Against Crime and Corruption or VACC, says the ombudsman filed the wrong and lesser case. The VACC notes the ombudsman committed injustice against the families of the victims of the botched operation.
Ang dapat sana, ang sinunod niya, yung sa complaint ng VACC and the relatives of the sub-44, yung 44 counts of reckless imprudence resulting in multiple homicide.
The group also expressed doubt over the motive of the ombudsman. The VACC explains Ombudsman Morales seems to have acted ahead of the decision of the Supreme Court in their appeal to repeal the results of the investigation. According to its founding chairman, the High Tribunal can still release a temporary restraining order or TRO to stop the proceedings of the Sandigan Bayan.
So we urge now the Supreme Court, sana po ay aksyonan nyo na po to because para pa talaga sa tunay na katarungan.
In a text message sent by Abigail Valte, the spokesperson of the former president, she said Aquino is set to issue a statement soon regarding the charges. Ray Pelayo, UNTV, News and Rescue, Quezon City.
The suspect in the killing of a Grab driver surrendered to the Pasay City Police last night. This morning, suspect Narca Delemios faced the family of his victim and the scene was heartbreaking. Nailagan will tell us why.
Bakit di mo pinagbigyan na mabuhay siya? Ang dami niyong pangarap sa mga anak namin, sa pamilya namin. Bakit mo ginawa? Nagpapawalang puso. Sabi nga ni Lord, magpatawad ka raw 777 times. Pero parang hindi ko yata makuha kahit isa.
This have been the resentment of the wife and mother of slain Grab driver Gerardo Juni Maquidato Jr. after facing the suspect responsible for his death. Maquidato was shot by his passenger suspect Narc Delemios last October 26 in Pasay City. According to the suspect, he was just supposed to steal money from the victim. However, Maquidato resisted, prompting him to shoot him in the head.
Hindi ko po alam na siya ay good Samaritan. Humihingi po ako ng pasensya pero mahirap na po talaga may balik. Pera lang po ang gusto kong kuhain sa kanya pero in-insist niya po, lumaban po siya kaya ko po nagawa yung krimen.
Delemios left Maquidato's dead body in Pasay City while he brought his Toyota Innova car in Tarlac.
Two witnesses tayo doon sa pinagbirinan mismo At nakita rin na yung assailant, hinila yung driver na pagkabaril. Actually, natulala pa raw ito bago siya gumalaw. May minutes pa na naglal. Parang kinocontemplate niya na bakit nabaril niya. So, after that, nilaglag niya na doon sa kalye, saka inalis yung sasakyan.
The suspect also thrown in the river the gun he used in killing the Grab driver. Authorities arrested Delemios in Pasay City after he sent surrender filler to the police and his mother-in-law.
Yung whereabouts niya, naibigay din, kaya may semblance of voluntary surrender, which is being assessed right now. Kaya hinuli agad o inapprehend ka agad ng elements ng CRPO together with CIDG.
Delemios will face charges of robbery with homicide for robbing and killing Makidato. The PNP Criminal Investigation and Detection Group notes Delemios also has a standing warrant of arrest for a murder case in Parañaque in 2014. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
Authorities arrested 81 Chinese nationals last night at a commercial establishment in Makati City. Asher Kadapan Jr. will tell us why.
Authorities arrested 81 Chinese nationals at the Burgundy Corporate Tower along Hill Puyat Avenue in Makati City at 9 in the evening last night. The Chinese nationals were arrested for violating Philippine immigration laws. Based on the mission order from the Ministry of Public Security of China sent to the Chinese Embassy in the Philippines, the Bureau of Immigration conducted a manhunt operation against the Chinese fugitives who are facing cyber fraud charges in China. With the Chinese Police and Counterintelligence Task Force of the Philippine National Police or PNP, authorities raided the 26th floor of the building where the suspects were allegedly working. Among the arrested was the leader of the group and several others confirmed to be on the list of fugitives with warrants of arrest in China. Authorities also arrested other Chinese nationals caught with the fugitives for failing to present legal documents on their immigration status.
Several names that were provided by the Chinese Embassy match the identities that were also present in that area, which is why automatically we apprehended them. The others failed to present any immigration document when they were required to do so.
The Chinese nationals were brought to the office of the Bureau of Immigration in Intramuros, Manila for further investigation and verification of their immigration status. They will undergo inquest proceedings for cases in connection with their possible violation of the Philippines immigration laws. The arrested Chinese nationals proven to have violated the country's criminal laws will also face charges. The suspects will be detained inside the Bureau of Immigration Warden Facility at Camp Bagong Diwa in Taguig City. Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue, Manila City.
Philippine National Police Chief Ronald Bato de la Rosa says he wants to fire the police escorts of convicted drug queen Yu Yuklai's daughter. Leia Ilagan will tell us why.
Philippine National Police or PNP Chief Police Director General Ronald Bato de la Rosa orders the filing of administrative cases against the two police escort of Dayan Yu Uy, the daughter of convicted drug queen Yu Yuklai. Operatives of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency or PDEA confiscated from Dayan Yu Uy 10 million peso worth of suspected shabu at her condominium unit last Monday in an anti-illegal drugs operation. PDEA operatives were shocked after they caught two policemen who serve as escorts of the suspect. According to General De La Rosa, the two policemen did not report to the Police Security and Protection Group or PSPG that the female suspect they are escorting is the daughter of Yu Yuklai. The cops are even accompanying the suspect in visiting her convicted drug lord mother at the Correctional Institute for Women.
Hindi nag-report sa kanyang immediate superior, then they are administratively liable for serious neglect of duty. Apparently, nag-enjoy na sila sa allowance na binibigay ni Dayan sa kanila. Ang loyalty nila ay nandoon na sa kanilang principal na pinoprotektahan na si Dayan.
Dayan was a kidnapped victim in 2006. For that reason, the PSPG approved her application for security detail in 2010. The PSPG assigned PO2 Faisal Abdullah Sawadjaan as her police escort, while PO3 Walter Vidad began to serve as her escort in 2013. Because of the matter, the PNP chief orders a thorough background check on cops applying as police escorts.
Because of this experience, we will be more careful, we will be more strict, and we will be maniniguro kami na yung mabibigyan lang na security detail ay talagang malinis na tao, hindi involved sa krimen.
General De La Rosa also orders the recall of all police detail so those who ordered for security could undergo review and background checks.
Tingnan natin baka meron pang ibang drug lord dyan na merong PSPG security detail.
The PSPG explains it is not aware that Dayan is the daughter of a convicted drug queen.
Actually, not in the application for the stated who are her parents. So ang nakalagay lang doon is yung kanyang personal background, history. Not at all who are their parents and siblings.
The police escort of Dayan were allegedly receiving 1,000 pesos allowance a day from her, aside from the salary they received from the PNP. Leia Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue, Camp Crame.
With residents remembering the victims of Typhoon Yolanda in Tacloban City, today's commemoration has been simpler compared to last year's. Joanano will tell us why.
Various programs had been conducted today in Tacloban City in line with the 4th-year commemoration of the onslaught of Typhoon Yolanda. The day started with a wreath laying led by Tacloban City Mayor Cristina Romualdez on the shipwreck memorial marker in Anibong District. The marker is in memory of the more than 6,000 who died in what is now called the Super Typhoon. Romualdez also went to the Astrodome Memorial marker that temporarily housed around 8,000 residents who evacuated following the strong storm surge. Despite President Rodrigo Duterte's absence in the commemoration, he declared this day a non-working day in Tacloban. In her message, Mayor Romualdez thanked President Duterte for his efforts to complete the long-overdue housing project.
Mr. President, we are grateful for your compassion and big heart for the Taclobanos and the people of Eastern Visayas. Since last year, we have seen a great improvement in the transfer of displaced families.
Since 2014, more than 7,000 families are in the permanent shelter in Tacloban North.
At present, we have 10,000 plus houses, units completed. On housing projects by NGOs, we have 1,600 already occupied. Thus, 7,215 families were transferred and we are prepared to move more families in the future.
Romualdez also says the Duterte administration promised to complete the projects in the Yolanda-affected areas in 2019. She adds that the economy in Tacloban is finally recovering and she attributes this to the assistance of different private organizations from other countries. A short concert led by the local government is now taking place in the city, and at 9 p.m., sky lanterns will light the night as Taclobanos remember those who have already gone because of Super Typhoon Yolanda. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Meanwhile, Eastern Visayas is now in its 4th year of what Ibon Foundation calls rehabilitation tragedy. Leslie Longbowen tells us why.
Based on the statistics of the Department of Social Welfare and Development, which Ibon Foundation used, 25% of the target housing units under the Yolanda project have been completed, and those finished are substandard in quality. Ibon says although Eastern Visayas posted the highest growth rate in terms of gross regional domestic product in 2016, agriculture continues to sink and there are still many landless farmers, poor and underemployed. The Research Institute adds the growth can be attributed to reconstruction projects such as road widening and flood control, as well as private construction of hotels, malls and establishments.
So in short, the conclusion of our study is that the government focused on rehabilitating business activities rather than attending to people's needs or the victims' needs.
Meanwhile, some congressmen assert the people responsible for the project should be held accountable.
So bottom line doon, babalik tayo doon sa accountability. No? Who were accountable for these lapses? Yung slow delivery ng projects, ng rehabilitation projects, and yung substandard materials or substandard projects that were done. And not just identifying but pursuing them and filing charges to those who are responsible for this. Dapat makasuhan at mahatulan kung talagang guilty or not.
Hanapin natin yung pinakamataas na opisyal na accountable. Of course, yung binabanggit kanina, Abaya, Soliman, Aquino, these are the top honchos. Pero itong current government na isang taon na rin, kung walang re-evaluation sa kanilang mapping dyan, sa kanilang strategy, they could form part of the accountability.
Meanwhile, some non-government organizations who helped in rehabilitating Eastern Visayas are worried the same will happen in Marawi City.
Ang lesson sa Tacloban, hindi para sa mga tao yung isinagawang rehabilitation. At mauulit yan sa Marawi. For as long as yung design ng rehabilitation ay para doon sa sa profit-making interest, mauulit at mauulit yung nangyari doon sa Tacloban.
Leslie Longbowen, UNTV News and Rescue, Quezon City.
In other news, government employees will receive early cash gifts beginning the 15th of November. Here's why from Nel Maribojo.
Starting November 15, that's a few days from now, right? All qualified government employees will receive their year-end bonus tax-free. That is equivalent to 1 month basic salary and a cash gift of 5,000.
About 1.38 million national government employees will benefit from the early release by the Department of Budget and Management or DBM of their year-end bonus and cash gift. However, local government units or LGUs and government-owned or controlled corporations or GOCCs note it will still depend on the availability of their funds. Meanwhile, Budget Secretary Benjamin Jokno also announces the possible source of the 20 billion pesos of the total 64 billion pesos amount needed so the government could double the salary of uniformed personnel.
So meron pa kami 20 billion na kailangan hanapin doon sa 2018 budget. And I think the Senate and the House has already agreed to tap some funds in the 2018 budget proposal to augment yung necessary.
The Budget Secretary is also confident that the government is capable of raising the salaries of soldiers and policemen beginning January of 2018.
Taga mo sa bato, hindi lang yun pangako, talagang gagawin yun.
Nel Maribojo, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasig City.
The Department of Transportation has decided to station a number of point-to-point buses at several stations of MRT Line 3. Joanna tells us why.
In the second day of the takeover of the transition team of the Department of Transportation or DOTR in the maintenance of the Metro Rail Transit or MRT3, the operations of the train experienced glitches anew. This prompted the officials of the DOTR, the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board or LTFRB, Land Transportation Office or LTO, PNP Highway Patrol Group, Metropolitan Manila Development Authority or MMDA, and several bus operators to hold a meeting. In the meeting, the government agencies and bus operators agreed to station point-to-point buses in several MRT stations. These buses will serve as alternative transport of passengers during peak hours.
Just to summarize, mabawasan yung nakapila sa North Avenue 6 to 9 in the morning. Ang objective natin sa hapon, mabawasan yung pila sa Taft MRT at mabawasan yung pila sa Ayala MRT.
Based on the agreement of the Interagency Council, 20 bus units will be deployed at the southbound of the MRT North Avenue station from 6 to 9 in the morning. 30 buses will also be deployed at the Taft Avenue station and Ayala station every 5 in the afternoon to 8 in the evening. And since the system of travel is point-to-point, the buses can unload passengers only in Ortigas and Ayala for passengers on the southbound lane, while buses coming from the Taft station can unload passengers only on the North Avenue station. And to ensure the faster travel of the point-to-point bus, they will exclusively ply the yellow lane and will be escorted by traffic law enforcers of the LTO and PNP-HPG.
Makikita niyo ho yung mga bus ay may tarpaulin. Yung libreng sakay, meron ho siyang tarp, yung Kalayaan ride. And then the other one is alalay sa MRT 3 using the fare po ng MRT 3.
Fares at the point-to-point bus is 20 to 24 pesos. Transportation authorities will conduct a dry run of the said system tomorrow to determine its actual effect on traffic. Meanwhile, the 4 buses of MMDA will provide free rides tomorrow until Friday. MRT passengers have mixed reactions regarding the new system.
Kaysa naman nadidelay kami sa pagpunta namin sa dapat namin puntahan. Pero kung dapat lang naman, dapat ayusin nila yung MRT kasi matagal na yung problema eh.
Okay lang, pero much better kung MRT pa rin kasi kapag bus, traffic kasi.
The MMDA has once again called for discipline and cooperation among private vehicle owners to not ply the yellow lane. Motorists violating the policy will have to pay a fine of 500 pesos. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, Makati City.
Mayor Majul Usman Gandamra believes that the restoration of Marawi City lies on how politicians, especially in the local level, conduct themselves. Ray Pelayo will tell us why.
Free from politicking, this is how Mayor Majul Usman Gandamra wishes for the rehabilitation of Marawi City. He calls on fellow politicians, whether or not they are pro or against the administration, to unite for the immediate recovery of the city. He adds that they should do this in behalf of the thousands of people who were rendered homeless because of the 5 months strife.
Yung pagbangon ng Marawi, dapat to hindi ito mahaluan ng politika. Kung ano ang magagawa mo, dapat itulong natin. Huwag natin gawing, it's a sort of politicking nang sa makita na ikaw mas magaling over the other public servant.
Residents whose houses are in the controlled areas or barangays that were not destroyed by the war were allowed to return to their homes.
Karoon ng revival ng economic life within the city, even within the controlled area, because that's essential. That's very basic. You have to, aside from reconnecting the distribution of power lines to each households and the supply of water, you also have to make sure that the people that will return in the barangays will also have an economic life.
Meanwhile, the local government of Lanao del Sur appeals for the continuous operation of the security forces, particularly in pursuing stragglers in the main battle area.
Siyempre, kailangan din namin ng tulong ng national government. Ayaw namin pagkatapos ng giyera na umalis kagad itong mga AFP and PNP. Kailangan pa nating ang seguridad na wala na talagang IC sa loob ng Lanao del Sur.
Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The task force Bagon Marawi begins the reconstruction of the areas in the city badly damaged by the war. As they support, the Department of Budget and Management, or DBM, releases additional funds for the Cash for Work program of the government. This is aside from the 495 million pesos from the Quick Response Fund spent for the evacuation and relief efforts for the families affected by the war.
This week, we have also released around 3 billion pesos to DSWD to cover continuing relief efforts and a Cash for Work program, enlisting residents in reconstruction, rehabilitation work.
Next on Y News. President Rodrigo Duterte leaves for Vietnam and vows to bring home more investments as he attends the 2017 APEC Summit.
President Rodrigo Duterte admits being offended by former DDB Chief Dionisio Santiago's comment on the admin's mega drug rehab facility.
And Philippine Navy contingent departs for a 10-day regional maritime security collaboration in Thailand.
Y News will be right back. President Rodrigo Duterte will hold talks with the leaders of Russia, Vietnam, and Papua New Guinea during his stay in Da Nang alongside the conduct of the 2017 APEC Summit. Here's why from Rosalie Cos.
President Rodrigo Duterte has already arrived in Da Nang, Vietnam for the APEC Economic Leaders Meeting. The Department of Foreign Affairs confirmed that President Duterte will be meeting with Vietnamese President Tran Dai Quang on the sidelines of APEC Summit on November 10, Friday. No agreements are expected to be signed between the two countries, but the meeting aims to enhance economic relations between the two countries.
The increased dialogue, bilateral economic relations between the two countries, and also developments in the ASEAN region.
Yes.
They're taking the chance to have short bilateral meetings and consultations.
Aside from this, President Duterte will also meet Russian President Vladimir Putin, and he will thank Russia for the arms and ammunitions donated by Russia during the Marawi crisis.
I am sure the Marawi crisis will be one of the important topics of discussion, how to counter terrorism and radicalization. There is also the important factor of economic cooperation, which is the highlight of APEC, and the increased potential of economics, business and trade and investment between Russia and the Philippines.
Papua New Guinea will be the host of APEC Summit in 2018, so President Duterte will also meet with Prime Minister Peter O'Neill. There are other economic leaders the President is likely to meet during the sidelines of the summit in Vietnam, but the schedule is still being finalized. Meanwhile, as chairman of ASEAN this year, President Duterte is set to deliver a keynote address tomorrow for the APEC CEO Summit. The speech will focus on regional economic integration and inclusive growth. Also, for the first time, there will be an informal dialogue between APEC and ASEAN economic leaders on Friday to be led by Vietnam and the Philippines. This is significant because non-APEC members such as Laos, Cambodia, and Myanmar will participate. Rosalie Coz, UNTV News and Rescue, Da Nang, Vietnam.
President Rodrigo Duterte considers the APEC Summit in Vietnam as an opportunity to increase foreign investments in the country. He says he also plans to raise some issues in the possible bilateral meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, particularly on the issue on the West Philippine Sea.
It's about time that ASEAN countries not really to confront, but to make clear to us what China really wants. I suppose that I bring the matter because while we were focused on the dangers of North Korea regarding its saber rattling and lahat doon nakatingin, I do not take it against China. He has claimed every part of it and nobody stopped him.
The local government of Manila will conduct continuous clearing operations and cleanup drives in Manila even after the ASEAN Summit. Aiko Miguel will tell us why.
The clearing operations are still underway along Rojas Boulevard and other major thoroughfares in Manila as part of the preparations for the ASEAN Summit. Since last week, Manila police have been on alert day in and day out. Task Force Manila Cleanup Chief Chebo Romeo says they still go back to areas that they have cleared ahead to ensure that they are free of street vendors and informal settlers.
Meron kasi tayo mga may lehitimo ng mga street vendors. Pinapayagan naman sila basta tama lang yung lugar nila, panatiliin nilang malinis, at inaayos naman natin sila kung saan sila dapat pwede at hindi pwede. Yung iba talagang hindi talaga pwede, lalo-lalo na yung nadadaanan, lalo na yung Ross Boulevard. Siyempre, magkakaroon tayo ng lockdown, talagang hindi sila pwede na magtinda doon o kumalat doon kasi talagang gwardyado po lahat yun.
The displaced street vendors, however, will be given alternative areas in the barangays where they can still sell. One of the major plans of the Manila LGU is the maintenance of cleanliness in the areas that were already rehabilitated. The LGU wants to set an example in strictly implementing order in Manila. That is why they plan to make this a continuing program even after the ASEAN Summit.
Nag-usap kami ng hepe ng DSWD, Manila DSWD, si Nanette Tayag. Sabi namin, pagkatapos sa ASEAN, dapat i-maintain natin yung mga lugar na hindi dapat puntahan ng mga homeless, yung mga vendors, katulad ng Ross Boulevard. Kasi pag ando dun sila, una-una peligro. Pangalawa, hindi yung maganda sa mata ng tao kasi ito po yung baywalk na tinatawag natin.
The Task Force Manila Cleanup appeals for public cooperation as Manila is considered to be the face representing the country. Meanwhile, the Philippine Coast Guard today started to implement the no-sail zone along Manila Bay and no-fly zone in Metro and Mega Manila, particularly in Rizal Park, Sangli Point in Cavite, Plaridel Airport in Bulacan, and the Subic International Airport in Olongapo. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, has cleared the sidewalks of Malacanang Complex earlier this morning. Rajel Adora will tell us why.
Personnel of the Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, dismantled the stalls of illegal vendors along Barangay 641, Zone 66 in Manila earlier. MMDA also demolished the structures blocking the sidewalk like this roof. The agency's personnel also towed illegal parked vehicles on the area and reprimanded its owners. MMDA conducted the said clearing operations with the aim to make the villages around the Malacanang Palace as model communities. After the clearing of communities around Malacanang of obstructions, village officials will now have the obligation to further clean up and maintain the orderliness of their areas of jurisdiction.
Every time na nag-clear tayo ng isang area, tina-turn over natin sa kanila, pinapapirma natin para responsibilidad na nila na i-maintain na cleared yung lugar na kinlear na natin.
The MMDA gives the village officials and personnel 2 weeks to finish the clearing operations. The agency notes the clearing has nothing to do with the upcoming Association of Southeast Asian Nation or ASEAN Summit, saying such an activity is part of their mandate. The officials of the barangays admit their negligence in maintaining the cleanliness and orderliness of their surroundings.
Naging aral na po sa amin to kasi noong una tinanggal naman po namin yan eh. Actually nagkaroon lang naman meron kasi rito. Pag kami binuburo kami nagkaroon dito ng patay.
The MMDA says it will file complaints against village officials failing to comply with their order before the Department of the Interior and Local Government. Erring barangay personnel will then face penalties. Rajel Adora, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Before he left for Vietnam this afternoon, President Rodrigo Duterte divulged the reasons behind the resignation of Dionisio Santiago as Dangerous Drugs Board Chairman. According to the President, he was offended by Santiago's remarks regarding the mega rehab center in Nueva Ecija.
Nagbitaw siya ng salita that it is a waste of money, that it is not the right approach. You know, you saw him in the previous administration. He was there. Bakit hindi niya ginawa? I was offended. He could have asked me for an audience and then tell me all about it.
The President has no replacement yet on Santiago's post.
Meanwhile, the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency Director General Aaron Aquino believes nothing is wrong with the construction of a mega drug rehabilitation facility in Nueva Ecija. However, Aquino notes there seems to be negligence in the implementation of the said project. Abby Santa Ines will tell us why.
Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency Director General Aaron Aquino sees nothing wrong with the construction of the multi-million peso mega drug rehabilitation facility in Nueva Ecija. This contradicts the controversial statement of recently resigned Chairman of Dangerous Drugs Board Chief Dionisio Santiago. However, Aquino notes the government did not benefit properly from the said facility as there seems to be negligence in the implementation of the project.
For example, about 400. Napakalit niyan, di ba? Pero kung gawin nating mandatory yung mga yung mga drug surrenderers natin na 1.3 million. Di sana puno yan. Ang problema, hindi na implement yun. So, nangyari diyan sa Nueva Ecija Drug Rehabilitation Center, voluntary.
For the PDEA chief, there should be centralized rehabilitation centers in the Visayas and Mindanao, since building such facilities in every province is not a practical decision.
Kung maglagay ka niya bawat probinsya ng rehabilitation just to be near with their family, di ba, it will entail, ewan ko kung gaano kalaki yan, naabutin natin yan.
Aquino meanwhile says he agrees with the suggestion of Santiago to build a community-based reformation center.
Tama yung sinabi ni Sir Santiago na mag-create tayo ng community-based para naman doon sa gustong ma-reform. Kasi reformation will entail just for a 2 or 3 months reformation. Comparing to rehabilitation, naaabot minsan ng taon.
Abby Santa Ynez, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
The Department of Justice has ended its probe into the 6.4 billion peso shabu smuggling case at the Bureau of Customs. Meanwhile, former customs officials continue to deny any liability over the smuggling of said illegal drugs shipment. Rodrigo Mendoza will tell us why.
The investigating panel of the Department of Justice has terminated the preliminary investigation on the 600 kilo shabu shipment smuggled at the Bureau of Customs last May. During today's hearing, respondent former customs officials submitted additional affidavits. Former Customs Chief Nicanor Faeldon insisted the allegation that they conspired to smuggle the shipment of shabu is baseless. He says complainant Norman Balquedra himself admits that he has no personal knowledge of the events. Balquedra also failed to prove that he was a PDEA representative. Former Customs Intelligence Chief Neil Estrella says the PDEA could not clearly state their violations.
Mismong yung complainant namin hindi may paliwanag ng maayos kung ano yung sinasabi nila sa kanilang complaint So we feel at this point pa lang we feel already vindicated.
They also welcome the Ombudsman's move to also investigate the case.
Sa tingin naman namin, fair din ng Ombudsman at makikita naman nila kung ano yung mga dokumento. At just to emphasize, wala po kami kinakatakutan dito, malinis po ang konsensya namin.
The case was already submitted for resolution and the DOJ panel is expected to release its findings next month. Rodrigo Mendoza, UNTV, News and Rescue, Manila.
Senator Antonio Trillanes IV files criminal and administrative complaint before the Office of the Ombudsman against Senator Richard Gordon. Here's why from Ray Palayo.
Senator Richard Gordon allegedly allocated 193 million pesos to the Philippine Red Cross since 2004 to 2011 from his Priority Development Assistance Fund or PDAF. According to Senator Antonio Trillanes IV, as the chairman and CEO of the Philippine Red Cross, Gordon was able to use its funds for his personal interest. Trillanes alleges there are projects not for Red Cross and have not undergone public bidding.
There are several instances na may mga procurement sila na walang koneksyon sa mandato ng Red Cross, kundi ito ay may koneksyon sa kampanya ni Senator Gordon noong 2010.
Senator Trillanes plans to request the Commission on Audit to conduct a special audit on the public funds allotted to the Red Cross. The charges filed by Trillanes against Gordon include plunder because the alleged misused fund is over 50 million pesos. Gordon is also facing charges for violating the Article 6 of the Constitution or the provision on the conflict of interest, violation of the Republic Act No. 6713 or the Code of Ethics and Ethical Standards for Public Officials and Employees, malversation, Government Procurement Act and Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Trillanes says should the Ombudsman rule in favor of the case, Gordon might be ousted as senator.
Pag nag-issue ng dismissal yung Ombudsman, pwede namin gaming basis yan sa Committee on Ethics para tanggalin sa Senado si Senator Gordon.
Trillanes also filed charges against the former Secretary General of the Philippine Red Cross, Gwendolyn Pang. The UNTV News still awaits the response of Senator Gordon on the said charges. Ray Palayo, UNTV, News and Rescue, Quezon City.
In other news, the Department of Budget and Management leaves it to Congress as to how the rest of the Malampaya Fund will be used. Nel Maribojo tells us why.
The Department of Budget and Management is ready to cooperate to any investigation that will be initiated on the now controversial Malampaya Fund. This stem from the Commission on Audit report where it questioned the use of 184 Special Allotment Release Orders or SAROs amounting to around 38 billion pesos. The said orders were done under the Arroyo and Aquino administration. The big chunk of the fund were allocated to the Department of Public Works and Highways, the Armed Forces of the Philippines, and the Department of Agriculture. the Malampaya Fund was designed to be used exclusively for exploration activities and other activities related to energy resources.
So when you release money for construction of roads or maybe even giving subsidy to the drivers, the jeepney drivers, to me that is not the appropriate use of the fund, right?
To date, there are 200 billion pesos left in the fund, which the DBM leaves to the Congress to decide for its proper allocation.
We have to change the purpose of that fund because the government is no longer involved in this activity. It's a private sector or a joint venture activity. So that 200 billion fund is, for all practical purposes, it's very difficult to access that or use that. So might as well give it to the Treasury and let Congress appropriate the money for other purposes. Okay?
Jokno adds that they have not and will not conduct any changes in the guidelines on the use of the said controversial fund. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, Pasig City.
At 9 in the morning today, the BRP Tarlac LD601 and BRP Gregorio del Pilar FF15 begin to sail with about 600 Philippine Navy personnel on board. Here's why from Aiko Miguel.
A Philippine Navy contingent begins to sail to Thailand today to participate in the first ever Association of Southeast Asian Nations Multilateral Naval Exercise or AMNEX to be held in Thailand from the 13th to 22nd of November.
Ito'y very historical. We are involving our naval reservists, yung Rescue Recon Group, as part of the contingent.
The AMNEX 2017 will be held simultaneous with the 50th ASEAN founding anniversary and the 11th ASEAN Navy Chiefs meeting. Commodore Almert Mogol, commander of the Fleet Marine Ready Force, is part of the Philippine Navy contingent. Mogol believes the naval exercises will greatly help in further improving the relationship of the Philippines with its Southeast Asian neighbors.
Through naval diplomacy, mas malaki ang magagawa natin para i-ease yung tension within the region at magkaroon tayo ng cooperation among our ASEAN neighbors.
Aside from the 10 ASEAN countries also participating in the naval drill are other non-Southeast Asian nations such as Australia, Bangladesh, China, India, Japan, South Korea, Russia, Sri Lanka, and the United States. By joining AMNEX, the Philippine Navy aims to expand its ties with its counterparts for possible humanitarian assistance and disaster response operations. Margarita Paredes, who lives in the province of Cavite, escorted her grandchild earlier, who is among the students chosen to participate in the naval drill. Margarita says she feels happy and sad with the travel of her 20-year-old granddaughter.
Nag-iingat at lalo ng kanyang kalusugan at makarating sa amin uli ng malalahati.
The Philippine Navy contingent is expected to dock in Thailand on the 13th of November and is expected to return home on the 28th of the same month. Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue, Manila.
Everything is set for the much-awaited A Song of Praise or ASOP Grand Finals to be held this coming Monday. Meanwhile, the program's resident judge, Doc Mon del Rosario, believes or observes rather that ASOP Grand Finals song entries are improving every year. Leslie Longboen tells us why.
A Song of Praise or ASOP Grand Finals is just a few days away. The program's resident judge, Doc Mon del Rosario, says ASOP Year 6 Grand Finals will surely be exciting, especially that the song entries level up every year.
Pag sinabi ng improving in terms ng storytelling, malilinaw yung istorya. Tapos yung in terms ng musicality, magaganda yung struktura. In terms naman ng yung mga rhyming schemes nila, yung pag-explore ng mga iba-ibang genre, nagiging mas aggressive eh. So I can say, nagmamature.
Dr. Musico adds he has witnessed how ASOP contributed in the country's music industry in the past 6 years.
Having worked with a lot of talented composers and a lot of very talented interpreters, nabubuhayan ako ng loob. In fact, I feel very encouraged. Lumalakas ang loob ko every year. Ay, wala. Malaki pag-asa ng music industry. If you think of praise music in the Philippines, imposible hindi mo isipin ang ASOP.
To support your favorite song entry this year, just visit www.asoptv.com/poll and click vote. You may also view its recording video uploaded on the ASOP TV YouTube channel. 50% of the score for the People's Choice Award will come from the online votes, while the remaining 50% will be from the Power Views. Voting and Power Viewing will close on November 13 at noon. Later in the evening will be the ASOP Year 6 Grand Finals at Smart Araneta Coliseum.
Ibig mo'y walang hanggan, ika'y di mapapantayan, Panginoon. Ng isang awit papuri na tanging sa'yo. Lahat ng sa isip at pusong nadiliplan, Diyos ay nariyan at kailanman di tayo iiwan sa dami ng aking nagagawang kasalanan. Tomorrow's a brand new day and the sunshine will shine your way.
Leslie Longbowen, UNTV News and Rescue, Philippines.
Those are the reasons behind the news, November 8, 2017. I'm Angelo Castro III.
Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am William Theo.
And I'm Darlene Basingan, because we need to know.
We will always ask why. Thank you for watching
Why News.